Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. I'm your host for tonight, Matt High, joined by Joe Capozzi and Chris Felice. Gentlemen, Chris, you said it before. I'm gonna take the thunder away from you a little bit, but we got 50 days. 50 days. I stole it right out there.
Yeah, you did. I got really worried. I'm like, what did I say?
How you guys feeling? We're getting close. It's really, it's right there. It's right there. Just reach out and touch it.
Reckoning is upon us, and we are so ready. I need it. I can feel it, dread it. Run.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Destiny.
So Joe, how we doing?
Pretty good. Just doing better than the Vikings wide receiver core. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's a little bit rough out there in the streets. We'll we'll leave that for another topic.
I see what you did there.
Another show.
I see what you did there.
Not just a pretty face. Come on. All right. So on today's show, we are going to do our 2024 breakouts. This is a time. These are all players that we're thinking they're going to take a big step forward and show up for you on your fantasy roster and why you should draft them. We'll go over some ADP and stuff where you can get them. But we're going to have a quick question today. What NFL team in 2024 will surprise us the most? Let's start with Chris.
Yeah, so I have the Carolina Panthers as the team that I think will surprise me the most. I mean, obviously we all know of the lows of what happened last year. I'm hoping now with some new blood in there, Deontay Johnson specifically in there. Hopefully some maturity. We have Jonathan Brooks as well joining that offense. Bryce Young hopefully having a triumphant sort of comeback here. I'm hoping with all those pieces aligned, maybe they impress. I don't know exactly like how far I'm expecting. I am expecting like contender for a Super Bowl, but I feel like if they make the playoffs, I'd be pretty happy. I feel they're like I feel like they're almost kind of like Jacksonville before Trevor Lawrence in a way, and this would be like the year where Trevor Lawrence would like kind of show that brilliance in a way and like give Jacksonville hope for whatever reason, only to have it taken away year after year. That's a story for a different time. But yeah, that's kind of what I feel. I feel like they're in a similar position to back before all that was happening, where Bryce Young can kind of finally mature into this. There's more pieces around him. The line is a bit better. They have a more cohesive defense. Everything, is trending upwards.
I like it. I like it a lot. What about you, Joe? What's your team? Who's going to surprise us?
My team is the New York Jets. I think people are kind of sleeping on Aaron Rodgers being back. I'm going to knock on wood. If he can stay healthy, I think they will surprise a lot of people and be a contender for playoffs.
We shall see. I know the Jets have scared me for a while, but mainly Aaron Rodgers. It really comes down to him. So for me, it's the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is a team that I've been lower on the past couple seasons, and this year might be no different. But in the back of my head, like there's every year we saw it with the Houston Texans last year. They went from worst to first. So if Will Levis can take a step forward. They have Calvin Ridley now. They brought in Tony Pollard. They have Tyjae Spears and DeAndre Hopkins. This team might not be as bad as we think. So I think they might be able to take this step forward as an NFL team. They have a new coach. So I think we don't really know what's going to happen. So I believe this could be one of those seasons where we're looking back and at the end of the season going, all right, they hit 500. We expected them to go a lot lower. So we shall see. But let's dive right into the main topic of the show. We're going to go over our breakout picks. So, Joe, why don't we start with you first?
Chris kind of took some of my points there, but my first breakout player is Bryce Young for 2024. If
Yeah.
you look at 2023, he finished as the quarterback 23 for most PPR points, which, if you think about it, for a rookie season is pretty good. I mean, that's above Kirk Cousins, that's above Joe Burrow. And the team only got better from last year to this year. He's going to take a step forward. He's going into his sophomore year. Like Chris alluded, they picked up new weapons for him. He has Leggett there now, who looks like a promising rookie. Adam Thielen's still there, and now he has Deontay Johnson, who, if he could stay healthy as well, has been a menace on the field. He's only posed for success, and if he can't do it this year, I don't know when he's going to do it. So I think he's going to have a great year. I'm projecting he's going to be closer to number 15, maybe even the top 15. But I'm not saying he's going to be quarterback number 1, but he's going to take a giant step forward in this next year, and he'd be a really good quarterback to target in late drafts as either QB2 in Superflex or even just like a backup for bye weeks. I would be glad to have him on my team.
Yeah, right now in redraft leagues, Fantasy Pros ADP, he's going as the QB 26, so undrafted in most cases. Superflex, he's QB2, low end QB2 according to them. But yeah, I mean, Deontay Johnson, say what you want, he demands targets. He can catch the football. He was playing with Kenny Pickett and did okay. So I think what they did, I agree with your points. They are surrounding him with players that fit his play style, and I think he could definitely take a pretty big step. Kind of similar to how we were all viewing Trevor Lawrence. That his first year he was terrible. We all just threw it out. So I think this could be a similar situation for Bryce Young as well. So I agree. What do you think, Chris?
I like it. I am a believer of the Bryce Young train personally. While I understand that circumstances are slightly different, 100%, I totally get that. I am looking at some other like QBs of the past, similar situations. Perhaps not the best first year for whatever reason. The first one that comes to mind here is actually my QB. The first time he got playing time, Jalen Hurts, was in 2020. Now he was actually sharing that time. So he was not the full on starter, but let's just say he had two halfway decent games that season for fantasy relevance. One of them was okay. He had like a couple touchdowns. So you can decide if that's truthfully what you want on your team. But yeah, I would say I like it. I feel like this is a similar situation because the next year after, he had a fantastic season. And I'm hoping for the same thing there. I would really, really like for the Panthers to actually be good once again. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and do my pick here. I got Zamir White as my as my first breakout player for this year. ADP is, I believe, 76. Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong or not, but that's what I have here. There is plenty of situations where players who were backups all of a sudden are thrusted into a starting spot, and it's truthfully the defining moment of you either will stay the starter for the rest of your career, or you're going to not live up to those expectations, and you're going to waste away in irrelevance back into a backup role, or worse, perhaps in a third string role for whatever team. So Zamir White will absolutely be playing his heart out anytime he can, because he most likely understands that this is literally the golden ticket. His fate is now in his hands. He understands what he's got to do, and now all he has to do is kind of put his foot to the ground and, no pun intended, run the ball. Get those touchdowns. That's about it.
Yeah, that helps. It helps when you run the ball as a running back.
Yeah.
I like it. I think volume is going to be his biggest thing. Alexander Madison in the backfield does not scare me at all. and I don't believe it should anybody. The best role Alexander Madison can play on a team is the Alexander Madison role, which is not a top guy. So I like Zamir White. I think his range of outcomes are pretty wide because do you guys think the Raiders are going to be a top 16 offense this year, or are you thinking, close to bottom? That's kind of where it is. Volume is king, but the upside is. But one thing I want to ask you guys here, because this is a strategy I've liked doing in the past. Maybe not zero RB, but would Zamir White be like one of the perfect? I know we were just talking about a couple other guys as well, but Zamir White is one of these targets in drafts that if you go hero RB or even zero RB, he could be
absolutely
for you.
100%. If your thought process is zero RB, Zamir White is definitely one of the RBs that you want to get on your team. There are a couple others. I will not name all of them, mostly because some of them might be mentioned. I don't want to do that again. My bad. Sorry, Joe. But yeah, this is definitely one of the RBs, and there's like about 4, honestly, that I would target. Like if you are of the mindset of the zero RB, I think this might be one of the better years to do it. Like this year might actually make sense. Like I like ADP 76. I imagine it's somewhere around there in Fantasy Pros as well. That's round like 5, 6, depending on the size of your league. You already have your top 3 wide receivers. Your 4th round pick can be whoever, and then you get the 5th round. Reach for this guy. That's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever. 100%. What do you think, Joe?
Agreed.
No, I really like Zamir White. I mean, if he's ever going to have a good year, it's this year, like you said. And I'm a big fan of any team that's going to give a player volume, because even if the team's bad, like a perfect example, I'd say the Giants, they suck, but Neighbors is going to see a lot of volume, which equals fantasy points, which wins you leagues, and that's why we're all here on this podcast. So
yes, excellent analysis. Yeah, we're here to help you do that. So stay tuned in, and you can just you can follow us on X here as well at the Heroes FF.
Whoa, the shameless plug.
Shameless plug. But hey,
let's go.
We gotta do it. So, alrighty, let's dive into mine here. So, thank you, Chris, for not talking more about any zero RB targets, because my guy is exactly that. There's a theme here, it seems. But Tyjae Spears is my breakout player. He is the RB 33 off of boards right now, coming off as 101st overall in drafts. Last year, he finished as the RB 39 on a really bad team, and behind Derrick Henry, who last time I checked is pretty darn good at football. So despite that, he was actually 7th among all running backs in fantasy points per touch. So when he got the ball, he was producing for you for fantasy. So this is top to him is Devon Achane, CMC, Kyron Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Robinson, and Breece Hall. Now, those are pretty good names ahead of him. And if he's able to make things happen with very little bit, I tend to like that. So now let's look fast forward to this year. Derrick Henry's gone. New coach comes in, new offensive scheme. Tony Pollard was added to the roster as well. But I really don't expect him to carry the 1A role in this offense. Like maybe it's more of a 50-50 timeshare. So the bulk of the running back targets, though, could go towards Tyjae Spears because he did that last season. I don't expect that to be a big change. Now, this whole thing is just all about opportunity. If this offense is even just mediocre, I said they could surprise. If they just are status quo, normal, middle of the pack, he could be a benefactor of a big increase in workload. And I'm not projecting him to be anything crazy, but I do have him as a very low end running back 2 for your fantasy this season in half PPR. So what do you guys think of Tyjae Spears? Because I know some of the news has been kind of mixed for him and Pollard. people expect Pollard to be the guy. Some say, he didn't do anything last year. Where do you guys stand in this backfield?
This pick makes me so happy that you picked it because I traded Tony Pollard to Matt, and now he's just throwing him straight under the bus, which makes me so happy because I have always kind of thought, no offense, Tony Pollard, but I don't think he is that good of a running back. And I think he was just in a very good system that let him show that he was better than he actually is. Take last year in Dallas as a perfect example. He was lackluster, to say the least. So I very much agree with you, Matt. I do think Tyjae Spears will be the main back there. And I don't think I think Tony Pollard's just going to kind of be like a break piece. I think he's going to struggle again, and we're going to just see more Spears. But that's personally where I am on this, and I think this pick is just funny overall because one, you have Tony Pollard, and two, Chris just traded away Tyjae Spears last season, so it's just a great pick for both of you guys to talk about. So, Chris, what
And
do you think about this?
let me just jump in here quick. I no longer have Tony Pollard. That is our other podcast mate, Richie. I traded him to him, so now he's his problem.
Should we take a moment in silence for Richie with Tony Pollard?
I'm not doubting the power of Tyjae Spears. First of all, I just want to say that trade did win me the league, so it was worth it. I just want to make sure that we all have that clear. Okay.
Get him
as
out
long
of here.
as listen, I win the league, and those trades are worth it. Sure, a couple of them are messed up, but sure, I messed up the draft to get into the league, but none of that matters as long as I won the league. But moving on from that, it scares me a little bit. I agree. I don't like Tony Pollard as a running back. I just think he's like meh. My worry is that the Titans are going to go by more of a committee system. That's my main worry. And I mean, Tony Pollard definitely showed that he had good sort of runs. The issue, which is really funny, because I remember the whole debacle with the original Pollard Ezekiel Elliott debacle back in Dallas, where Ezekiel Elliott started to have a decline. And every single time Pollard came on the field, he started to show up, right? Every single time. And Jerry Jones is one that says that Pollard is he can't go the full game. That's why we're going to keep going like this. And you know what? As much as people hate him and I hate him, he was right. He can't go the full game. He does at some point burn out during it, and that ended up being a big issue. So I feel like this will be a committee role. I feel like they'll have Pollard do stuff, part of the game, a lot of it, and then they might work into Tyjae Spears factor as well during the later half of the game, or perhaps vice versa. I'm not too sure. The versatility here scares me for a breakout season. I like Tyjae Spears. I think he'll do well, but I think there's too many what ifs for me to say that this guy will end up being the breakout at this current moment. Sorry.
No worries. All right. So, Joe, who's your second breakout candidate for the 2024 season?
I'm still on the running back train with you guys, and I'm gonna go with running back Zack Moss, who is now on the Bengals. And let me just preference this. So last year he was on the Colts with Mr. Jonathan Taylor, who we all know is a beast, but he started the season injured. So game one, nothing for Zack Moss, but I think that was right before he got traded, if I'm not mistaken. Or I don't. He got no touches in week one, but week two, 18.7 fantasy points. Week 3, 21.5 fantasy points. Week 4, 9. Week 5, 32.5 fantasy points. Week 6, 14.9. Week 7, 6.7. And week 8, 13.9. And then finally, in week 9 is the first time that Jonathan Taylor saw over 70% of the snaps because he was back to being healthy enough to take that role back. But if I'm a Zack Moss owner, I'm very happy with those numbers. He did excellent in the role, unlike Pollard who did poorly when Zeke was out or Zeke was gone. Moss excelled. So now that he's on a new team, he's with the Bengals. I think he's going to do great. I know people are talking about Chase Brown maybe being the number one there, but I don't think Chase Brown is going to outperform Zack Moss, and I think Zack Moss should be the RB1 in Cincinnati. And I'd be very happy to take him. You might even be able to get him as a 0 RB strategy. You could probably get him a little later because he's not one of these big names that people are taking in rounds 1, 2, or 3. So you could get him later in the draft, and he's going to put up good numbers for you.
Yeah, he's going 82nd overall in
That's
drafts
crazy. That's
as
criminal.
the RB25. So not
Jeez.
even just outside of the RB2 range, but I see I'm a little bit more on the Chase Brown side, but not to the point where it takes away too much from Zack Moss. I do think Zack Moss is going to be a very, very relevant fantasy running back this season. I just don't know if he has the upside as some of the other players do in this range. But that's just my opinion. Chris, I know you're a big Zack Moss fan being on the Bengals. So if you would like to continue on, I know he was
Yeah.
wasn't I think he was your sleeper too, right?
Yeah, Zack Moss was my
Yeah.
sleeper.
Nice.
And I will say that I absolutely do agree with this. I feel like this is definitely the he 100% can. This is honestly the same logic of Zamir White, right? Guy, he's a backup, entry a couple times, has great stuff. All of a sudden, is thrusted to a starting position role. This is it. Prove it, or you're done, and you'll be restrained to tier second string or third string for the rest of your career, right? This is the exact same scenario. I don't see a world where he doesn't end up as the RB1. If I'm being honest, Brown kind of reminds me of Tony Pollard. Just a little bit. Yeah, but that's kind of how I look at it. I'm not a huge Chase Brown fan. I don't know. It's not that I think he's bad, but I just don't think he's got that thing that they're looking for. Remember, this is also a team that's like looking to like really compete, and Joe Mixon is definitely a sort of void that they need to fill in a sense. Like he was the RB1, and I imagine keeping the kind of same system in line, they want an RB1. They don't want to go full committee. Like 70-30 is at best what I'm looking at here in terms of like a committee ratio here, right? They want something of that nature so that way they can get back to doing what they need to do to win a Super Bowl while their window is still there. With that being said, I'm gonna break the RB train. Unfortunately, my my second sleeper breakout pick is JSN. Now JSN ADP. I'm gonna need help with because I got a lot of varying numbers here. Can you give me the ADP of JSN, please? I really don't know. Like I have a lot of varying numbers here.
I will get that for you in 2 seconds.
Yeah,
But don't
it's
count.
really tough.
99th overall.
Thank you.
Wide receiver 42.
Okay. So, my reasoning for this is a little weird. It has required a very specific path, but I feel like it could work. I don't anticipate DK Metcalf leaving the limelight. I think he'll be the guy there in Seattle. However, Tyler Lockett, on the other hand, now he's someone that I feel like could easily trend on the downward. He's older. He's injury prone. Seattle is obviously looking towards the future. Geno isn't going to be there forever, I assume. So they're definitely thinking of the quarterback to come into the future, and they want as much stable as possible so they can put that quarterback into a system that makes sense. And getting someone like JSN up to speed as like a wide receiver 2, who knows? Maybe wide receiver 1, although I don't anticipate that happening, could very well be the case. I mean, I've said it many times. Many of us have said it many times. Every single good team, for the most part, utilizes a 2 wide receiver system where both of them can pretty much justified be the wide receiver 1. It's just one happens to literally just be better than the other. But both get utilized on the team, which is good for us because that means more fantasy points. So yeah, JSN, my second breakout for the year.
Being a JSN dynasty manager, I love that. And he was originally going to be my breakout, but there's another guy I wanted to bring up instead. But looking at last season on the Seahawks, that offensive line was terrible. They made moves this offseason to fix that. And when in the rare times that it was okay last year, when Geno Smith had time, he was really good. His metrics
Oh,
are
absolutely.
really, really good. So if that's what's going to hold it up, if we're getting more time for Geno Smith in the pocket to find his guys open, JSN is an excellent route runner. I think the sky's the limit for him in 2024. So I love that pick.
I would like to, sorry, really fast, right? 'Cause I just realized I never gave an example of a player backing to the corner, right? Geno Smith is literally that example, right? Like Zack Moss, the Zamir White, like how we're talking about, like the backup guy getting the chance. That's literally Geno Smith. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Like this happens all the time. Tom Brady is literally an example of this. So it happens. I promise. I'm not going crazy. Sorry. Continue.
No worries. All right, Joe, number 2.
I with just on JSN, I agree, but it makes me a little nervous. And my reasoning behind that is there's a lot of mouths to feed in Seattle. You got Lockett, you got DK, you got JSN. One of them has a good game, and then the next week they do nothing, and a different one of them has a good game. Because they're all very talented wide receivers, and that's the only part that makes me scared on that pick. I do think JSN is going to be one of the top wide receivers there. I think him and DK should see a majority of the targets, and Lockett might start to fade out as he's getting older. The one thing I'll say with Lockett is he's very good at avoiding getting hits. He catches the ball and falls down, which is good for Lockett, bad for fantasy managers with yards and points. But
Longevity.
Yeah, that's why he's been in the league for so long now.
That is true.
Yeah,
he does stay healthy.
Why am I going to get tackled by a big dude if I could just be like, oh, catch, I got it. Okay, I'm done. First down.
Yeah, that. But I do like that pick. I do like JSN, especially in a dynasty aspect. I'd take all the shares of JSN I can get. I think he's the future of that team. And I do think he's going to break out. Do you have another running back for us, Matt, or did you break the chain for us?
I broke the chain.
Again?
Broke it.
I thought this was going to be a whole running back podcast, and then Chris broke it.
Nah, we don't need to do
that.
So this is where I'm looking at a tight end, which is not something I typically do. I don't really like
PG, Matt. PG.
I know. I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone watching, but
tight end.
Dalton Kincaid is going to be my breakout. He is currently drafted as a tight end 5, 52nd overall. Right now, the Bills going into 2024 had the second most vacated targets with 317. That's second to only the LA Chargers, who lost basically everybody, with 395. They also have the most air yards lost, 3,353. There's a lot of new stuff going on with the Bills. They fired Ken Dorsey last year. The offense shifted. Dalton Kincaid had some pretty good weeks. With the loss of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, someone is going to need to fill that void. And right now, I think Kincaid is just that. He's someone that I can see finishing higher than his ADP. Currently in my rankings, I actually have him at the tight end 5, but that's just because some of the other guys I have a little bit higher. I think this is the one time that we've been waiting for years where the tight end position is actually somewhat deep. Usually the past 4 years, it's been you got Kelsey, Kittle, and Andrews, and everyone else you just throw against the wall because they're going to get you the same amount or not get you anything. So I think this is finally the first year we can actually say, yeah, tight end is deep. There's a bunch of guys. And Kincaid, I have leading the entire Bills receiving options in targets this year. So it's really not going to be hard for him to beat his ADP of a 5th round pick. It's going to be someone he can take a huge step forward and be one of these guys that we're talking about next year as, he's a top 2 to 3 tight end. So Dalton Kincaid, welcome to the breakouts. I hope I get you in fantasy this year, but we will see. What do you guys think about Kincaid?
I think he's going to have a great season, especially with Diggs and Gabe Davis gone. Do I think he's going to be the top targeted thing in Buffalo? No, but I think he's going to be either number 2 or number 3. I still think Khalil Shakir is the top target in Buffalo, and then followed by Mr. Coleman, the rookie, and maybe with Kincaid as number 3 there. I could see him also being number 2 because he's been on the team, and we don't know how rookies are going to do yet until we see them actually play. But I do like him. I'd be very excited for him to be my tight end, my team. I'm not a big taking a tight end early guy, and I think his ADP is a little too high for me. But yeah, that's my take on it. Chris, what do you think of Kincaid?
Yeah, no, I like Kincaid a lot in terms of like where he's going to finish. We have to always remember that like this is the tight end position. We should, in a sense of like where we should be ranking them in terms of receiving stuff, we should not be stacking them up against the receivers, but other tight ends when you're trying to take a tight end, right? So in terms of like where that will be at the end of the year, I have a feeling Buffalo's going to play more spread out offense. They will diversify targets more now that they don't have this clear cut super number one. So I think with that in mind, though, Kincaid still is going to get plenty of targets. He's still going to have a great time thriving in that offense. I don't think having him finish in the top 5 of tight ends is exactly that outlandish because I feel like, for the most part, I mean, let's look at Sam Laporta. Look at that offense. That offense is nuts. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Jameson Williams. That's 4 insane guys, 3 of which can catch the ball. Right, and then you throw in Sam Laporta in there, right? I don't see any reason why that success can't be replicated in Buffalo. While I know that Shakir and Coleman aren't exactly Amon-Ra St. Brown, the offense can be more diversified. There's definitely a path to it. I like it. I'm a fan.
For me, just to put numbers to the targets that I'm projecting for this offense, I have Dalton Kincaid at 122 targets and Khalil Shakir at 117. I think those could be up, down a little bit as we get through training camp to really see where players are going. Like once we get into more preseason, I'm sure we'll get some clarity on that. But even still, last year, Dalton Kincaid had 90 targets. So it wouldn't be crazy to me to think he's getting 100 plus. And if you're a tight end getting over 100 targets, I want you on my team. They don't have to be the best targets. You're getting volume. And tight end, that's what we've been used to. You get volume, welcome aboard. But that's it. We got all of our breakouts in the books. So we are going to do some more of these shows. We are going to have, I believe we have the busts show up next. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We have to basically just poo-poo on
I know
players.
who Joe is going to pick. It's T. Higgins. Nobody.
We should make. I'm making the rule now. Before we do it, you're not allowed to put Kyron Williams, Anthony Richardson, or T. Higgins. Choose one of them.
Why?
There's 3.
You're ruining him. You're
Why?
ruining him.
You're just a hater.
No, I think you're the hater. But yeah.
I'm just being realistic.
Yeah, if you're being realistic, you gotta put J.K. Dobbins in there too.
Don't worry, I won't do that. I will withhold.
Oh, good for him.
And I feel like a millionaire.
Matt sends me a TikTok of Anthony Richardson playing basketball. He's like, "Oh, look, he's good." Like,
let's be fair.
Copium at its finest.
It's great flavor. It tastes great.
It's the wrong sport, Matt.
Yeah, it's fine. He's using his shoulder, so we're good.
Anyway.
Yeah, without anyone touching him.
All right. Anyway, hey guys, let's save this for next week. All right, come on.
Yeah. It's all right. Well, we're gonna have something. You and me, Joe. We're gonna have to
leave a comment in the chat. What side are you on? Do you think Anthony Richardson is going to get hurt this season, or do you think he stays healthy the entire season? I want to hear what you want to. We need to settle this. Leave a comment, tweet us anything. Tell us what side of the fence are you on. Please set up a poll.
On
let
X.
the people decide. Let the people speak.
Wow.
Yes.
Here we go.
All right. I'll post that tonight. So you'll have that by the time you listen to the show. Check that out. But as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Would really be helpful if you guys leave a comment and a review. Really helps us out, get more stuff out there. And we want to know how we can improve. So definitely help us out with that. But until next time, where we have some more of this fun discussing players that we may or may not like, we will chat with everyone later. So long.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at TheHeroesFF.